the G League just passed a trial run rule, and I think that while it's not bad and it's not great either, I think it'll do what it actually has the purpose of doing. So let me explain first. The rule for this G League rule is revolving around the free throw line. So the way it's set up is that rather than shooting for, say they get fouled on a three-pointer, instead of shooting the 3 free throws, you end up shooting 1 free throw that is worth 3 points. And that will hold true for all fouls based on where you're fouled. Shooting a jumper, layup, if it's a layup or a dunk and you get fouled on that and you miss it, 1 free throw worth 2 points. Same thing holds for an and one. You go for a layup or you shoot a 3 and it becomes a 1 free throw shot for 1 point on top of the basket that counted. So that's the general rule, but it does not apply to the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter as well as the entirety of overtime. Now, the reason that was given for this was to improve game flow within the G League, within the basketball games, so that you don't waste 30, 40 seconds shooting free throws, and you reduce the length of games. So, for example, especially for the G League, their average game is 2 hours, 5 minutes, and it's predicted that with this new rule, they'll shave off 6 to 8 minutes from a game, which is a lot. And that'll put them just under the 2 hour barrier, right between their allotted time rather than going over the actual time. So there's probably some extra cost benefit that goes into it, but the main part of it is dealing with the game, improving the game flow. So I'm not going to look at this from a G League perspective and how it's going to influence the G League, but more of how if it gets implemented into the NBA, how it would influence the NBA. So like I said before, I don't think it's going to be good or bad. I think it's going to be generally fine up until around the fourth quarter, really. I think that arguments made about, players can get tired, I think it will actually incentivize better substitution strategies for coaches, and it can make playoff games a lot more about depth than star-studded teams. I think that it can keep games interesting and fast-paced, such as if you're down by 10, maybe you get a few fouls there that might not be good, but then the other team misses some free throws, and boom, you're right back on it. You're back right there because it is noted that you're more likely to miss the first free throw than miss the second or third ones. In other words, you're more likely to make the second and third free throw than the first one. So it's predicted that you're going to have the same, if not more, missed free throws. And I think that it also should generally be fine in the NBA unless they don't get this freedom of movement or motion rule tightened down and a bit more understandable. Because once that happens, and then you're at less fouls, and it's going to be back to like a normal, steady pace of fouls rather than probably people flopping, trying to get into the bonus early, get 1 free throw for 2 points quickly like that. Now, I think that in the fourth quarter, because it's in the last 2 minutes, that it goes back to the regular rules where you shoot that amount of free throws, like 2 free throws for 2 points. So it becomes 1 point for each free throw. I think it probably will cause early fouling. So maybe at the 4-minute mark, people are going to start fouling and stuff like that. Especially if they're down by 10, 15 or more points, then I think it's going to be a last resort just to try for a prayer to get back into the game, which doesn't really involve skill, really, which is not really what the NBA is going for. But I do think, even though that will induce sort of a hack-a-shack mentality early on, I think that'll just be early on, and I think eventually it won't be much of a problem. Mainly because I believe that with teams getting into the bonus quicker because of that, because you still got to get into the bonus to actually have those teams shoot free throws, I think that once you get into that bonus early on, I think it's going to kill your chance of having those comebacks. It's still going to happen. It will happen if it gets implemented into the NBA, but I think it's going to be less likely. So I think as time goes on, if it gets implemented into the NBA, it's going to start off rough, but as time goes on, it's going to be generally okay. And I think that overall, it's a pretty interesting, innovative idea that the NBA can take a look at and take into consideration, maybe do, after the G League tries it, a 1-year trial of it. Now, my only problem with it is that if that were to happen, it would sadly make comparisons of previous statistics regarding free throws, points, all that stuff, fouls. And if it gets implemented, the nowadays statistics regarding points, free throws, all that stuff, it would be hard to compare the two because it would once again be different eras. Like when you had different fouls added onto today's NBA, like freedom of motion, yeah, it racked up some fouls, but you can still compare the two. But now, if this were to get implemented, it'd be a bit more difficult to compare the two, and it could be more of a reason to show, hey, basketball from however long ago is way better than nowadays. Which probably is not the case. I would say that it depends on who you are and when you grew up and what you really, really like to watch. But I think that overall this is an interesting, innovative rule that the NBA should take into consideration and take a look at.